Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
All right, it's the 10th of December, 2025. This could be just about our final episode of the year when we are looking at our business programs. Maybe, I'm not too sure, but thank you for staying with us up until this far. Just taking a moment to really reflect on what has been an incredible year, and as well as a productive one of business news, as well as keeping you abreast with all the solutions that Nedbank Eswatini has for you. And speaking of some of those solutions, we discussed a very important one that we have enjoyed over the year, the ABF campaign by Nedbank Eswatini in partnership with Stuki Motors, where they offer you preferential pricing for getting affordable but also luxurious as well as comfortable Chinese cars, courtesy of Stuki Motors and Nedbank Eswatini. We will have that discussion with Head of Branch Networks, Zamangwane Dlamini, on the program today, so be sure to stay for that conversation.
Also on the program, we'll get to focus on government's move to strengthen local participation in the economy. Of course, as the Ministry of Commerce continues to engage stakeholders on the proposed regulations under the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act. The Act is designed to expand opportunities for eMaswati-owned businesses and is now undergoing the development of regulations that will shape how empowerment programs are implemented and accessed across the country. MSME Director in the Ministry will break down the key discussions from today's session and also explore the potential impact of this legislation on Eswatini's business landscape. Also, on the program, we'll get to look at the Central Bank of Eswatini's 2025 Financial Stability Review. The review shows that the Financial Stability Index improved modestly, supported by stable inflation, steady deposit growth, and strong capital and liquidity buffers across the banking sector. At the same time, the report points out to deepening structural pressures, with the central bank warning that if these pressures are not addressed, systematic risks may begin to rise again heading into the new year 2026. To help us understand these findings and what they mean for the economy, our economists will talk to us about the indicators, the risks, and the policy responses needed to safeguard financial stability. But first, we'll have a look at our business stories on the program today.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch right here on Eswatini TV. Let's have a look at some of our business stories.
On our first story today, we take it straight to the Citizen Act, where businesses in the Manzini region have been given a crucial platform to voice their views on the Citizen Economic Empowerment regulations. Now, speaking during the validation session at the George Hotel in Manzini, the chairperson of the Citizen Economic Empowerment Council, Linkin Mota, emphasized that the regulations are not just a legal requirement, that they are a transformational tool that is designed to broaden access to economic opportunities for eMaswati. There's a report.
The purpose for this workshop is in twofold: to review and validate the final draft regulations ensuring they accurately reflect the insights collected from the stakeholders across the country, and to confirm the national alignment of the framework before it moves forward for final approval and implementation. The CEE regulations represent far more than a legal framework. They are a transformative instrument, a declaration of intent that demonstrates our nation's determination to expand access to economic opportunities, to promote local ownership and enterprise growth, to strengthen fair procurement and supplier development, encourage skills transfer and capacity building, foster accountability, transparency, and good governance, and to build an economy where every Eswatini has an opportunity to rise.
The Director of Small and Medium Enterprises, Mluleki Dlamini, further explained that the Citizen Economic Empowerment Act seeks to rebalance the economic landscape and ensure that eMaswati play a central role in their own economy.
These regulations that are being developed will have certain percentages that will be reserved for citizen-owned businesses so that they can also benefit from all that is being traded in the local economy. The success of these regulations will be measurable. Our MSMEs remains the backbone of economic growth and poverty reduction through job creation. Government took the initiative to address the economic disparities through the development of the Citizen Economic Empowerment Act and also now the development of the regulations.
Businesses say the act comes at a critical moment as many local markets that should be reserved for eMaswati have been lost over time. They believe the new regulations will secure fair access and maximize benefits for indigenous Swati-owned enterprises.
Ulungiselelwa ukuthi bosomabhizinisi bemtsabo bemaswati babe nalo ligalelo nyalo ku-economic yale live noma ke etimalini letitholakala kule live.
Utasisita kakhulu ngoba bese singasadi ukuthi sibhekephi. Besingadi nalokuthi lo mthetho utoke wendeke ube khona yini usilamlele kuletinkinga lesinato.
The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade has been consulting across various business sectors to guarantee that the final regulations reflect the real priorities and aspirations of local businesses. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Manzini.
With artificial intelligence on the rise, even in the business space, Women in Trade and Development is training young entrepreneurs on digital skills. Simpumlile Mkabela says there has been a gap as young people were struggling with growing their businesses online.
Today we have 22 participants that we are training under the course of digital skills. We're training them on how to write a business plan, how to create an email, how to use an email, how to send a professional message using an email, how to write cash flow so that they can be able to see if there's improvements in their businesses. We have found that some they do have the laptops but they don't know how to use them, especially when it comes to the issue of writing a cash flow.
Different young people have expressed that the training is not only timely but essential for the growth and sustainability of their businesses. They shared that before this program, they struggled to understand key elements such as bookkeeping, digital marketing and online brand positioning. They now feel confident that the skill gained will enable them to reach a much wider audience while reducing costs and improving the overall efficiency of their operations.
Bengingakafunzi kahle ukuthi na utimaketha online bengathi nje like utimaketha ku Facebook nanani ngisho ufuna tinto ufuna ka Facebook, at least now sengiyada ukuthi marketing uyakhona kuyenda na kuma laptops order tinto online ukhona kwenda konke nje like online vele nekwenta ema-bookkeepings bengiyendi business but bengingakhoni uku-understanda like labo paperwork ukuthi ukwenta njani la ku-laptop.
Ngalo sengidawukhona ukuthi nami ngitakhele lipage lakami ngikhone ukuthola ama-customer lamaningi ngasetindzaweni letehlukahlukene kungabi ukuthi kusendzaweni yami la ngisebentela khona.
Women in Trade and Development has reaffirmed its commitment to continuously support the youth in sharpening their entrepreneurship skills, especially as the business landscape rapidly evolves in the digital era. The organization highlighted that with the country having over 60,000 MSMEs, according to the MSME survey, there is great need to equip young people. There is a great need to equip young entrepreneurs with modern tools to help them compete, grow, and thrive. This initiative is part of a broader effort to ensure that youth-led businesses are not left behind as more economic activity shifts online. Reporting, Nelson Langamandla, Manzini.
And you're up to date with some of the latest in business.
You already seen Mluleki Dlamini, the MSME director, in one of our stories, our business news stories. We get an in-depth interview as he talks to Notsile after the break. Virtually, stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. On to this now. The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade has today convened the Manzini business community, consisting of groups, different organizations and individuals to gather their inputs on the regulations of the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act. So what are business owners really saying? What expectations are emerging from these consultations, and what could the regulations mean for the future of citizen-driven economic growth? Who better to answer these questions for us than the Director of MSME himself, Mluleki Dlamini, who joins us now virtually. A very good afternoon to you, Nkosi, and thank you so much for your time. Perhaps we could just start here. During these engagements or consultations with the business community, what specific insights can you at least give us? What are their opinions with regards to the Act?
Good afternoon, Notsile and your viewers. It is exciting to be with the business community here in Manzini, engaging on the national validation workshop on our citizen economic empowerment regulations. As you have highlighted, that there are key highlights in terms of what the business community want to see in terms of the regulation. One of it basically is the issue of preferential procurement in terms of local business getting a certain share of local procurement in government and also the private sector. And today it came out clear when we're discussing that they are ready to provide services into the economy and also goods. And we agreed that 50% will be allocated to procurement for local businesses and will be distributed across the youth, women, and people living with disability. So basically, these are the issues that came out today. And also topically was the issue of delayed payments by government and other business communities. So they felt that it should be part of the regulations to say there should be a stipulated time that is given for any service that has been provided in terms of the time of payment, which is basically an issue of it was 30 days that was eventually agreed upon.
Because with many, or well, some MSMEs operating informally, How do you think these regulations, well, what do they propose, in terms of transitioning informal businesses into the formal economy without imposing, costs or requirements that cannot be immediately met?
Indeed, that informality will be addressed through what we term as our MSME registry, that we want all businesses to be registered in that registry so that we can understand the nature of business and their scope, so that we can also assist them in terms of transition from the informality, and also come up with products that are tailor-made for their businesses in terms of capacity building and also financial support. So here we are talking about, I remember there is a section that talks about subcontracting, where those businesses that are informal will have an opportunity to be part of the value chain in terms of subcontracting to businesses that have formalized, and they will also be part of the value chain. So we see things being changing for the better for businesses in the country.
Right. You've touched on how businesses are actually complaining with regards to procurement. Now, this is a struggle for many, when it comes to having deals with the government, saying that, some of the processes are too complex or they favor then larger companies. Given this regulations or this act, how will the new regulations ensure, fair access to public procurement for Eswatini-owned MSMEs?
Indeed, we have come up with a definition of targeted citizen-owned businesses. So basically, that is where we'll see the distinction between just an ordinary citizen and also a targeted citizen. So here we'll be targeting businesses of women, youth, and people living with disability. And at the same time, we'll be looking at businesses that are owned by indigenous Eswatini. So those are the businesses that are earmarked or are targeted to benefit out of all these incentives that government will be providing, and also ensuring that they are supported for their growth.
The Act is built on specific different pillars that include the development of different enterprises, local participation, procurement, as you have touched on, and skills transfer. Can you explain how these will be operationalized practically in real terms for MSMEs?
Yes, the issue of skills transfer will be dealt with in terms of ensuring that there are audits in these businesses to see the scope and nature of skills that are being provided through training. And we also want to ensure, in terms of labor equity, that we will need to see that locals are also part of management, and there's also skill transfer that will be happening in those businesses. In that way, we believe that we will see a positive results out of this initiative.
There's often a concern with regards to lack of access to markets and opportunities, and especially in sectors that are dominated by foreign ownership. How do you think these regulations then plan to balance empowerment locally and economic participation with the need to maintain foreign investment, as it is actually just one of the things that the country really needs?
Yes, as part of our program, we will be looking at enterprise development program, which basically will be linking our retail and also our entrepreneurs. In that way, we want to see that they also are able to supply the good quality and also the volumes that are required by the market. We have also strengthened our standards through Ingelo certification program that is ongoing, and we believe that it is one of the game changers in terms of ensuring that our products now have local dominance in our retail space, and eventually we'll be looking at export of all of these products. So it is just a program that we are focusing on, and we hope that all businesses will participate in this respect, and government supporting them throughout their journey.
The minister likes to say, Ngozi, Eswatini is open for business. And with the initiatives that have been implemented by the ministry, I could say perhaps the opportunities are there, not only for foreign companies to invest in the country, but also for Eswatini entrepreneurs to actually shine. But one of the realities is, the cost of doing business, high input costs, limited access to credit, and infrastructure gaps, and so many others. How do you think the regulations address these barriers so that empowerment is not only just about access to opportunities, but also creating a competitive business environment?
Yeah, in that front, I believe that as government, we have put in place through this regulation issues of joint ventures where foreigners come in to conduct business. We are saying they need to partner with locals so that those ventures can also benefit local businesses. And in terms of ensuring that the cost of doing business is reduced, we have seen that we've put in place also places like the Business One-Stop Shop, whereby all of these agencies that facilitate registration of businesses are under one roof, and that also has eased the process of registration. So we believe that otherwise other costs such as utility cost, those are the ones that most probably they are still being discussed with the relevant agencies in terms of how can those costs be addressed. Otherwise, in terms of business processes, we have simplified them and reduced the time it takes to register those businesses.
I'd like for us to wrap it up, Director, with this one final question. The Act actually promises, significant economic changes such as the shift in terms of value creation, ownership, and participation for citizens. But, in practical terms, what outcomes then can Eswatini expect in 3 or perhaps 5 years of implementation of the Act?
We are looking at having this Act changing the entire landscape of the country in terms of seeing more Eswatini businesses trading and also being the ones that dominate also in the global space with respect to export. That would be one. And we also want to see youth participation in business and women-led businesses also scaling up and also rising to be multinational companies. That is the aim of one of the reasons that government embarked on such an act and also going into development of such regulations. So we really do want to see scalability and also significant economic contribution of our businesses to the country through taxes and also to GDP.
Ngozi, thank you very much. That's all the time we had. You and I will leave it here for today. That was Mluleki Dlamini, who is the Director for MSMEs in the Ministry of Commerce, talking to us about the Citizens Economic Empowerment Act, as the ministry is currently running consultations with different stakeholders with regards to the act. This is Nedbank Business Watch. The show continues after this.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Back. The Central Bank of Eswatini has released its 2025 Financial Stability Review, showing that systematic risk has eased slightly over the past year. The Financial Stability Index improved from 0.35 to 0.32, supported by strong bank capital levels, steady deposits, and lower inflation. But the report also warns of growing pressures such as fiscal imbalances and weakening bank profitability, which then continue to pose medium-term risks. To help us make sense of the figures outlined in the Financial Stability Review is economist Sanele Sibia, who joins us virtually. Mr. Sibia, thank you so much for your time. I do hope that I'll be audible. What is the improvement of the aggregated financial stability index from 0.35 to 0.32 signify really about systemic risk in the country?
But thank you, Notsile. Good afternoon to you and a good afternoon to the viewers. So what that signals, Notsile, is what we could have expected given the fact that global conditions seem to be improving. And if you look across the globe, you can see that, inflation is getting closer to those levels across the globes, to those target levels across the globes. And within the domestic economy and the South African economy, it is still within band, even with the new range that we are now targeting. And the fact that we are targeting lower inflation, so now that does show a bit of stability across the globe. And I think it was released at a time where we had moved away from all that uncertainty that was caused by the Trump imposition of tariffs, such that right now we are not seeing much of an effect in terms of the global, or in terms of the financial stability index there. But what still remains is, the risk remain elevated, even though we are now at a point where interest rates are coming down. But there are those risks, which include the unpredictable, tariff environment, and that tends to just throw a spanner into the works. But what we're seeing is there is a bit of some strength within the global economic system, and also the domestic conditions are somewhat more conducive, and that shows in the numbers when you look in terms of credit, more especially to businesses and to households. And if you look at, the depth of the financial sector, and also if you look at, those liquidity buffers within our banking system.
And the external economic conditions index improved to 0.42 in mid-2025. Perhaps you could just share, some of the factors that drove this improvement.
Thank you, Notile. So in terms of those improvements, what we're looking into is, number one, the global terms of trade. For example, we're looking at the fact that this comes immediately after we're seeing supply chains across the globe moderating, post-COVID, where we saw in the latter part of 2023 and well into the earlier part of 2024 that supply chains were still struggling to re-establish and, just go back to those pre-pandemic levels. But now we've seen that, easing a bit. And we've seen with, when you look at the overall earlier in 24, we saw what we called a hard money environment. And then now when we came into 2026, we saw yet another denormalization drive. After the normalization drive, though we're seeing interest rates going down in the normalization drive across the globe, but they're not moving as swift and as fast as, markets would want them to. But then what we are seeing is interest rates across the globe are coming down. We can see supply chains have been, restored. And I mean, we've seen that transient impact of those Trump tariffs, where we saw somehow thought there was going to be yet another supply chain reconfiguration type of policy, but we then saw President Trump double down on those. So those conditions across the globe remain relatively favorable. And in terms of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which actually had an impact on the price of oil and also had an impact in terms of grain, or in the price of grain. And what we've seen that even with the war, there are those Black Sea routes which have been negotiated, and we can still see a bit of wheat and some sunflower seeds coming out of both Russia and Ukraine into the global markets. So we've just basically seen quite a lot of improvements in terms of the global financial flows and also in terms of the global supply chains, which was the main factor that we considered way back in 2024 in terms of how we then foresee and how we see supply chains coming back to normalcy.
Thank you very much for that one, Mr. Spear. So for the local policymakers, government or lead institutions, how should they then be interpreting the overall movement of the aggregated financial stability index when it comes to balancing financial stability versus economic growth and some of these global factors?
I think right now we should be very grateful to the central bank and partners involved in the calculation of this index, because it does give an overall indicator of the stability and the soundness of the financial system in Eswatini, while at the same time it shows where the risks are likely to come from, or going forward. We do know that there are risks around our fiscal position and the overall debt levels, which is not just a Eswatini condition, but a global issue in terms of the debt levels. So what this now means is, policymakers need to take this report and look into it and, go into component by component and try to ensure that we do fix the issue, the impending issue before us, which is that of the burgeoning wage bill and the fiscal constraints within government, because it's one of the downside risks that we see that this report points out to going forward, including the high debt levels, those debt servicing costs. They do put pressure on the fiscal pace and that fiscal space. So we do need to look into that. And then another policy that we need to look into as a country is that policy of getting our households to a level where they can spend very well. Because in as much as we're saying that there is a bit of movement within the loans, credit access to credit that is given to the private sector, but we can see that households are still not doing relatively well there. So we do need to ensure that we find ways to cushion the households and ensure that we are dealing with the high cost of living environment, which is something that I think the governor will start considering in his next monetary policy come January next year, because we do need to figure out ways to make sure that the household sector, because that's where a lot of the demand comes from, and if we are not seeing those pressures being abated within that sector, it does create a situation that we do need to deal with as a country. And then we also do need to ensure that we continue that deepening of our financial sector, which is more a developmental objective that the country is pursuing. We just need to ensure that the depth moves beyond the bank financial institutions into the banking institutions. And I think with the payment switch, Eswatini payment switch, we can see it's a bit of some interoperability between multiple platforms. But what we need to do now is make sure that we get a bulk of Eswatini into the mainstream banking system, or ensure that we can utilize those statements, those mobile money statements, and other platforms there to make sure that it does create this proof of banking, which most Eswatini desperately need to access credit, and also to even get more capital. But we just need to get more Eswatini into the banking system.
With financial soundness, the financial soundness index, as you've touched on, having seen a decline over the recent years, how worried should we be, as a country, about the weakening in the resilience of financial institutions? Is this something that should be concerning us now before we head to the year 2026?
Well, that's one of the things we should always be concerning ourselves with, Notsile. The strength and soundness of our financial system, determines how well we can mobilize resources for our developmental agenda within the system domestically. And we do need to, start asking the questions: why are we seeing this pressure and seeing non-performing loans on the increase, and mostly coming through from households? It's mostly emblematic of, somewhat of a weakening business environment. And also it could be an issue that speaks to, the impact of, one of the examples would be the Trump presidency and the impact on USAID. And that could be trickling into that. So now that shows that we do need to build a domestic economy that's less vulnerable to such shocks, by making sure that we can produce and generate quite a number of the jobs within the mainstream economy, so that we know that the conditions domestically is going to determine where our business environment goes. So we do need to look into that. And also probably it's an issue that says we do need to rethink, the banking model, even though right now the banking model in itself is what is keeping us a bit insulated from quite a number of the issues that we face across the globe. For example, because we are still on that collateral-based lending system, and that is what somehow insulates, the banking system, so that even when we are seeing these non-performing loans, if they are coming through from secured lending, the banks are in a position to recoup some of those losses there. But it's concerning, Notile, and it requires immediate policy action, because when we're seeing these increases in non-performing loans, it then affects, the pricing of capital, and makes it a bit expensive for banks, even to give out more capital in future when they have an increasing NPL portfolio within their entire ledger.
Mr. Sibiya, thank you very much for your insights. That was in-house economist Sanele Sibiya, helping us, giving us a rather clear picture of the 2025 Financial Stability Review as released by the Central Bank of Eswatini. The show continues after this. We're back with Nedbank. Stay tuned.
right, welcome back. You are still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Well, Nedbank Eswatini, you will remember, entered the vehicle finance space with something deliberately bold, a partnership with Stuki Motors that brings preferential pricing, I beg your pardon. They also bring flexible finance options as well as a genuinely simpler path to driving off in some of the latest Chinese vehicle models. From your Omoda to your Haval to your Cherry, the bank says luxury and innovation no longer need to break the bank. So let's unpack this innovation now, what it means for consumers, for the automotive market, as well as for affordability overall, with Head of Branch Networks at Nedbank, Eswatini Zamangwane. I mean, welcome back to the program. I remember we had this conversation about this solution here, and it sparked a lot of conversation around. People were so excited, and I can imagine now that it's December, and I've been seeing a lot of these cars on the road. In my head, I'm like, okay, this is the product that Zama was telling me about, and Maswati have taken it up. How far have we come with it?
Afternoon, Nguni. It's good to be back. So far, we are still availing ourselves to Maswati to experience this beautiful technology of cars. As you've mentioned, we have an active campaign with Stuki Motors, and this deal is only limited until the end of the year. Of course, we will review going forward, but it's packed with exciting offers for our customers, like you've said. You're rightfully saying, and we certainly wish Maswati could say, they are very affordable in the deals that we have with Stuki Motors. And also, you want to spend Christmas in a new car, drive your wheels, get behind the wheels.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying that the uptake has been quite, very receptive to what you guys wanted with Maswati. And I'm someone that can be chronically online. And there's this new trend where people announce their cars online, and they go with their friends and they do this whole celebration. And it's just been beautiful to see Maswati buying brand new cars, because that's good for the economy as well as for our carbon footprint, because all cars can be bad. But I think, how is Nedbank really celebrating as we cap off the year, seeing so many Maswati affording luxury cars, but also supporting Nedbank?
We are quite impressed with the results of our campaign so far, but of course, naturally, we know that it can always be improved. Yeah. We are impressed, and you are saying that you are chronically online, and I think Maswati are embracing it, and we're seeing it in the numbers because they are chronically online also, searching for this technology of Letimo Auto, appreciating the advancement of how these can actually feature. We've had some pop-up activations, and we see customers sitting in the cars or a short test drive, and all of the features of these vehicles are really mind-blowing, not like your traditional cars or car models of the past, but this is futuristic types of vehicles, and it's quite heartwarming to see the embrace of Maswati.
And of course, Asia was always leading with the technology. And if I had to have a question, why Chinese models, I think you've just answered that as well. But preferential pricing is something that is quite evident here. I'm seeing that the offer includes practically what we call preferential pricing. What does that look like for a customer that is walking into a Nedbank branch today? How much value are they really unlocking?
Okay, so when we term it preferential pricing and the partnership with Stuki is we are almost making an offer that we are certain or can guarantee that you can't get in the market for all the vehicles. So we are pronouncing ourselves in the various models. We will be quite bold to say you can get a car from this amount, this specific model from this specific amount in total value at the specific price point per month in repayment. And the reason we're doing that is because we have offered a combo package to our customers to say, we'll take you through the full journey in terms of the quotes, the insurance, the tracking service. You just come and collect your key, and no other service provider will give you that. But because of the bank wanting to do good in terms of our motto and vision, is to say that basically, we want to give Maswati le mali back in the pocket. Everyone is tight financially. And as far as you are tight financially, you want to pay the best price and still live relatively comfortable. Your car shouldn't be a cost that surpasses your living standards such that you are not able to live well. We want to make sure that we are giving you convenience that is affordable and it's applicable to you. What is applicable to you may be different for Zama, because maybe Zama will prefer a longer tenure, maybe you'll prefer a shorter tenure, or maybe you'll prefer a smaller car, I'll prefer a bigger car. So I think we've even called it flexible financing, because we are so flexible enough that we want the financing to be agile, to fit into lititsingo tako.
Yeah, you know, I love the way you phrase. We want to give you convenience that is affordable, but also comfortable, because
and sexy,
and
smart,
and smart. You know, leading technology, very beautiful cars, very sexy as you term it, but the financing structure, as it were, you mentioned that there is the flexible, but not only flexible, but also competitive vehicle finance options that you guys have. And I'm just looking at this one. They can fit everyone's lifestyle. I'm talking about lower deposits, extended terms, but also income-based structuring. I think that's commendable.
Yes, certainly. We even go further and we offer balloon payment terms as well. Balloon payment terms is we deduct a percentage of the portion of the price of the car, and then you only pay it at the end of the tenure in terms of raising financial. And that's, again, just to come into the flexibility. And like you're saying, it's for all types of lifestyles. So it's for all types of environments. Family might want a 7-seater. It's at a certain price point. You want to make sure that there's still a continuum in the livelihood of that particular household, or an individual, or a bachelor, etc.
Yeah. I'm a bachelor myself, so I'm really, you know, thinking about this solution.
Surely there's a car for you.
This year, of course, of course. Let's talk about the speed of application, because, as you said, you're offering convenience, but convenience at every level, right? Even from the application, and this campaign indeed does emphasize fast, reliable approval processes. Talk to me about that.
So we have committed, and we remain committed to a 24-hour turnaround time at minimum. Or rather, at maximum. Yes, at maximum. So we are almost guaranteeing you that within a day, you will know for certain the car that you're driving, once you've picked it, when you're picking it up, etc. And the rest, we've taken care of it in that regard. But of course, we do work with Stuki Motors. So even when you're at Stuki Motors on the dealership floor, they will provide you with the same experience that we are committing to, as will our branch networks in any distribution or point of presence. We also have our ABF specialists who are also actively engaging with customers in activation points or points of employment and on the dealership floor themselves. So they will articulate all of the needs, the processes, and the commitment. Time doesn't have value, but it is valuable, because you want to make sure that the customer has the least frustration as possible in this process, and also has the peace of mind. So you want to make sure that they give an answer as soon as possible.
Yeah, of course. And I think that is why Eswatini continue to prefer Nedbank, because you continue to put them at the forefront, and you really consider their time, but you also consider their pocket, you consider their life after they've left the Nedbank branch. Should be comfortable, should be soft, should be sexy. The target customer, you've mentioned that you've literally thought about everyone, from your bachelors, from literally everyone, your first-time buyers as well, families upgrading, young professionals. How intentional was that decision?
Very intentional. A vehicle is convenient. Is a convenient asset that everyone requires. And of course, it's not something that you can afford at all times. And hence why we needed to consider all our customer types at all spectrums and all points of their life. Hence why we built it into what we're calling it as a lifestyle. So like you're saying, whether you're a newly graduated young professional, there's certainly a car for you, and it's probably the opportune time to buy the vehicle at that point in time, as well as the upgrading, including our older type of customers, those customers who are considering what kind of vehicle can I buy as I wind down in my retirement years or whatever the case may be. So certainly we have a car and for every type of customer, and we have been intentional in thinking of how we can solution for everyone's pockets.
The limited time window, I think, is a conversation we need to have, because I can see this conversation again sparking more interest and people not really considering the time that is still open. Offer running until the 31st of December, 2025. Why this timeline, and what should customers really do now to position themselves early?
The partnership is running until the end of the year. Of course, like we said, we are open to reconsiderations, and we'll consider again similar partnerships even in the future, as well as with all our other partners. However, around about the time of this year is when we all start to reflect on what has been happening in terms of the past year, our finances, our aspirations. Have we achieved our goals that we set out at the beginning of the year? So it was opportune that, you know, we also position it to say you may be more financially liquid in December. You may have savings that have matured, investments that have matured. If there's an opportunity for you to even make a bigger saving or actually maximize on a benefit, and you do have a need for a vehicle, then take this opportunity to purchase a vehicle during this time. And maybe it's also I almost want to say it's always an emotional purchase, and somehow once you are ending the year, and you are reflecting, you do say, you know, maybe I do deserve to reward myself with something that is that's marking some specific milestones that have been achieved as well. Yeah.
Today is the 10th of December. The 31st is in exactly 21 days. Minus, of course, Sundays. I know you guys sometimes operate on Saturdays.
Yes, we operate on Saturdays.
So people have, give or take, what, 15 days?
Yeah, give or take 20, 18-ish days. Yeah.
If they really take advantage of everything that you've just mentioned. So we do implore Eswatini to get in touch. I do want to give you the final opportunity to say something that is with regards to how people can get in touch with Nedbank.
Yeah, so if our customers are looking for a head-turning vehicle, we remain available. Of course, we are on our social media pages. That's on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as X as Nedbank Eswatini. We are also available at our branches, like you've mentioned. We are also available on the dealership floor, countrywide, at the Stuki Motors, as well as our help desk lines, which is a telephone number and an email address, helpdesk@nedbank.co.za, and 32781999. You drop an email, you drop a call, and certainly someone will get back to you within minutes.
Zama, thank you for your time. And to our viewers at home, like she said, if you want a head-turning vehicle, you still have a couple of more days to maximize on this very incredible campaign by Nedbank Eswatini. It is convenient, it is affordable, but it is also very comfortable, so make that right decision. Get in touch with them. She's given you the numbers, but you also do know where you can locate Nedbank at your nearest town. So let's go for a net break now. We have more of Nedbank Business Watch. Masbuya. All right, welcome back to the program. Global markets are holding their breath, and all eyes are on the United States as they await the rate decision to be made. And of course, everything is flawed at the moment in anticipation. Sandiswa, welcome to the program. Sandiswa is the treasury dealer from Nedbank Eswatini's Treasury Department. Is going to help us understand how the rate decision is affecting all the global markets, and indeed they are all in anticipation. I want us to start by just understanding what the rate decision is and how it's affecting everything.
Yes. Thank you, Sfisa. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your viewers. As you have rightfully mentioned, we have a very important interest rate decision this afternoon. This is the last for the year, and in the commentary, in that presentation by the Fed, we are also looking to see signals and clues towards what's going to be the package from the Fed next year. So we are sort of trying to have portfolio managers position themselves for next year. So we'll have to understand what's the posture from the Fed perspective. But currently what's happening is that the markets are pricing in a 25 basis points cut. So there's a 90% chance of that. If that does not materialize, we're going to see a big jump or a big reaction from the markets, because this is something that's already priced in.
Okay, let's get to it now. We'll just go through gold, then we'll go commodities and then equities, because everything's affected by the rate decision. Let's get through it. Let's start with gold.
So in terms of gold, gold is up currently. This is because investors are currently moving their funds from interest-bearing assets to gold. And some of this we can see on currencies, in the sense that investors are also moving their funds to emerging economies like South Africa, Malaysia. So from a South African perspective, the rand is getting a high demand. So we also have crude, which is currently down, and this is not necessarily based on the interest rate cut, but mostly coming from oversupply of oil. So we have seen OPEC ramping up their production of oil. The US is also having record highs in terms of their production, so the market is flooded with oil, whereas we have markets like Europe and China having a slight drop in their demand, so that have dropped the price of oil. But from, just to go back to currencies, we have seen the rand strengthen a little bit over the past few days. Like I've already just mentioned, that's because of capital inflow from outside investors into the country, and this is also because in anticipation of the rate cut, the South African interest rates are more attractive now because they remain higher, so investors are moving their funds into the market. And there's also a trend. This happens every December, January, early Jan. They call it the Christmas trend, but it's linked to the fact that a lot of exporting industries are currently converting their funds, especially if it's in US dollars, euros, they're converting it to ZAR for end of year reporting. So now that raises the demand of the rand, and then it leads to the strength that we currently observe in the market. So, but maybe just to highlight, this presents a big opportunity for import clients in the market to import. If you want to buy something, this is the cheapest, or this is the right time to do that.
And then as we move to equities, what are we seeing there? Well, of course, the conversation around the AI bubble, premised with the juxtaposition of course, the rate decision. I'm sure there's a lot going on there.
Yes, so there's a lot of caution in equities, and mostly it's because we have this anticipation of the rate decision. It's more than just the rate decision. Mostly the effect will be coming from the posturing of the Fed. So that's why the commentary relayed to the public by the Fed chair will be very important to see what will be coming in beginning of 2026 and going forward. So currently we are seeing a reserved activity in the market. There's a bit of being conservative in terms of traders. So S&P, FTSE and JSE All-Share are all down, but this is not a surprise in anticipation of later movements. But from the S&P 500 perspective, there's also that aspect of the AI bubble. We have seen a commentary from Bill Gates earlier today, where he was just alluding to the fact that we have AI companies that are currently valued very high, and some of these companies will not stand the long term. So though from that perspective, it's a bubble, but we also have companies that are going to withstand the test of time, and they will remain in the market. And from that perspective, investors should be looking to invest on those. I
wonder which ones those are the ones that will not stand the test of time, because I have a bit of an assignment to go do some reading there. But an interesting insight from Sandy Sodla, our treasury sales dealer from Nedbank, Eswatini, a moment that has kept trading floors unusually quiet with the rate decision, but also with the S&P 500 there, the conversation around the AI bubble as pronounced by Bill Gates. We've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for staying with us. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good bye. Bye-bye.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.